The Ready to Learn Learning Triangle is a teaching tool. It addresses various learning styles and engages different senses. This workshop is based on these principles: view, read, and do.
So mad. I wanted to keep some frogs in the bathtub, but Mom wouldn't let me. I was so mad. I wanted to play with my little sister's dollhouse, but Dad wouldn't let me. I was so mad. I wanted to play hide and seek in the clean sheets, but Grandma said, "No, you can't." Was I just so mad? I wanted to water the garden, but Grandpa said, "No, you cannot." So I decided to decorate the house instead, but Grandpa said, "You cannot do that either." I was ever so mad. Dad said, "Hey, why don't you play in the sandbox?" I didn't want to do that. Mom said, "Why don't you play on the slide?" I didn't want to do that either. I was just too mad. I wanted to practice my juggling show instead. Mom said, "No, you can't." I wanted to tickle the goldfish, but Mom said, "Leave the goldfish alone." "You won't let me do anything I want to do," I said. "I guess I'll run away." That's how mad I was. So I packed up my wagon with my favorite toys and packed a bag of cookies to eat on the way. Then I walked out the front door. My friends were going to go play ball at the park. "Can you come?" they asked. I asked my mom. My mom said I could. I'll run away tomorrow if I'm still so mad. We're going to talk about what to do with the mad you feel and talk about specifically the social and emotional development of a child. And it's really important that as we discuss this, that the ideas that we have today are for a normal child. If your child has delays or they have problems with their social and emotional development that are beyond the normal behavior, you really need to get very specific help. So these ideas, just remember, are for just your everyday normal child. One of the things that I want to talk about is that this workshop was actually created by Mr. Rogers Neighborhoods Foundation, the Family Communications. And they actually did this to help parents and daycare providers understand that anger and the emotions that children have are developmental issues and how you can approach that as a parent. One of my favorite quotes from this workshop is that nobody knows all the answers and that we learn from each other all of our lives. I think that's very, very important to remember when we talk about child development or human development, is that we always have an ongoing research, and the theories are theories. They're things that we believe in, but sometimes situations change that we understand that maybe child development, we need to change our ideas and structure that. For example, I was raised in a wonderful family. I had wonderful parents and wonderful grandparents. When I started having children, my grandma said, "Let them cry it out." And what did that mean was if a child was crying, especially a baby, is just to leave him there and let him cry. We now know, and research after research has proven, that with a baby that's crying, that we need to pick them up. They need to feel attached to us and we need to bond to them. That's something that we've learned. Now, as we get older, we seem to learn from younger people, and younger people can learn from older people. Remember, we don't know all the answers, and especially raising children, we need all the help that we can get. So as we discuss anger issues today, remember, if there's ideas that will help you, use them. If there's theories that you might think, "Oh, that probably really wouldn't help my family," then just maybe skip above those or try to find things that will help your family. But remember that anger and emotions are something that is developed, things that children learn, and that's what we're going to discuss for the rest of the time. As we talk about anger, I want you to think about maybe a particular time that you got mad. When was that? I know when I get angry, probably my children know, we're getting there, is I actually will turn splotchy, and the madder I get, it could get up to my ears, that color in my body. We do tense up. Our heart rate increases, and children have that same experience. When they get upset, there's actually a physical change that happens. Anger is natural and normal, and usually is a reaction to other feelings. Now, we could take any feeling, such as happiness is normal. We all think, oh yeah, that's normal. Happiness is normal. Joy is normal. Fatigue is normal, right? Especially for young mothers. Frustration is normal. We need to remember that being mad and being angry is normal and natural. There's nothing wrong with having those feelings. When we talk about books with social and emotional development, one that really describes this, where it's a reaction to other things, is the book Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. I've noticed that as you've been sitting here, some of you saw this book and some of you said, oh, this is my favorite book. There's a lot of children that grew up with this, and this is a very good book to read to children so they understand that it's okay to be mad. Some days are just like that. In this book, I've had people over the years actually count how many things happened to Alexander. Let's just see how his morning starts. I went to sleep with gum in my mouth, and now there's gum in my hair. And when I got out of bed this morning, I tripped on the skateboard, and by mistake, I dropped my sweater in the sink while the water was running. And I could tell it was going to be a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. There was no prize in his cereal box. And, he just had to sit in the middle at the carpool. He told them that he was going to be sick, and nobody even listened to him. One part that that really cements the deal for him is this. There was 2 cupcakes in Philip Parker's lunch bag, and Albert got a Hershey bar with almonds, and Paul's mother, she gave him a piece of Jelly Roll that had little coconut sprinkles on the top. Guess whose mother forgot dessert? It was a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. In this book, I think we've counted like there's 37 things that happened to Alexander. Talk about a reaction to other feelings that go on in a child's life. And that is one thing that we need to understand as parents, those that work with children, is that when we talk about anger, when we talk about emotions, it's normal. What we want to do is what to do with those feelings. What is appropriate reaction to handle feelings, and how we can move from, crying all the time to actually being able to express our feelings. And so in this workshop, we're going to talk about the stages that happen for the very, very youngest child, for a child or an adult, and how to use their feelings. Now, as we do that, I want to make a really clear comment, is that development happens from the foundation up. And so very quickly, I'm just going to build a building, and it's going to be 4 stories. Oh, maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger. It's going to be, how many stories is that, Rachel? We're going to have a little building. It sort of looks like a totem pole. But we need to have a firm foundation. And with each stage, in each stage, there's going to be growth. You're going to start at the bottom and grow up. There's different things in a person's life, not just a child's life, but in a person's life, that will cause us to digress or maybe even go down a stage. Now, I'm going to talk about 6 that can cause some of adults and children stress in their lives, that as they develop may really impede their development, so they might need some extra help, or maybe regress a little bit and then they can bounce back up. And as we talk about them, I want all of you to think, wow, have I had that in my life? Have I had more than one of those experiences in our life? The first one is a birth. With the birth of a baby, that's something to look forward to, isn't it? right? You just can't wait for that baby to come. Any of you have any stress when that child comes? Okay, sometimes it's quite stressful. And one of a very good book that's by Kevin Hinkes that describes the stress for a sibling is Julius, the Baby of the World. A little sister can't wait for this baby to come until it comes, and then it creates all kind of chaos in her life. And you know, it's very normal for a birth, not just for the mother and the father, but for the rest of the family dynamics to maybe have some stressful situations. I know with my second child that my first child hadn't used a bottle for months and months. He was almost 3. And all of a sudden, here came brand new baby brother, and older brother felt like that bottle was his, and he wanted it back. And so, you know, some things we have to realize that there might be some changes. Another one, a death. A death can cause some stress, especially for children when they don't understand where they've gone. Are they coming back? Some others is, and it's sort of funny when we think of, you know, some of these should be exciting. A marriage! How many of you, when you got married, Liz, did you just think everything was going to be fantastic, no problems? Was it like that?
For the most part.
Oh, okay. Well, you're probably one. But was it stressful at all, combining two families?
After the honeymoon stage, yes.
Yes, after the honeymoon stage. I remember, you know, after that honeymoon stage, I thought that my husband and I on Sunday afternoons, we would have a quiet dinner. He would help me do the dishes. We would sit down and discuss the next weeks. I did not imagine that football would be on the schedule. And so our coming together of, you know, compromising and figuring things out was a little stressful. And for children that come into a second marriage, that is going to cause some stress, and it needs to be addressed. Not all children are always happy within a second marriage, and so we need to make sure that those needs are not just glossed over just because everyone else is happy. Also, of a divorce will cause some stress. That's self-explanatory, but looking at that with your children when they're in their emotional development, how is it impeding it? How are you making it harder for children? What can you do to help them in the stages that they're at? The next one is a move. Okay, if you move, you need to realize that there probably are going to be some changes in your child's behavior. Rachel, can you think, have you moved recently?
Yeah.
Okay, did it cause a little bit of stress? And you don't have children yet?
Yeah, but it was enough stress just between my husband and I, just trying to get everything. It's such a difficult thing to do.
Okay, it is. Now, I know when my husband and I moved into a new home, we were so excited. We had a bedroom for everyone. Everyone had their own bedroom, their own space. And you know, that first night, everyone that had a bedroom from upstairs all ended up in the baby's room. All 4 of them were in the smallest bedroom of the house. Now, one by one, they slowly, you know, days later, found their own room, except my youngest boy at the time, and his brothers kept telling him about these big spiders in the basement. So we changed his room that he was sharing it with his sister for a couple of years because he felt more comfortable. And we only moved less than 2 miles away from our original home. And so we need to understand, though, those are some things that happen. The last one, I think that is either starting a new job or for children starting a new school or even a new school year. By a show of hands, have any of you had a move, a job change, a marriage, a divorce, a birth, or a death in the same month? Okay. All right. And I'm surprised that there's not more than 2 of you that have only experienced just, you know, 1 or 2 of those things. Usually a marriage and a move are together. Rachel, have you ever had more than one of those happen in your life?
Yes, we moved and then had a baby within 3 weeks later, and everything went crazy for a while there.
Okay, and then it was able to calm back down.
Yeah. Once we started getting sleep, we were good.
And I'm just going to knock down my own little totem pole building here. And I want you to watch as this falls, and I'll try to do it from the foundation usually will stay, okay? It's not going to move as much, but things from the top are going to go down. So when we're talking about the stages, and there's 4 stages of emotional development within a child, if they're in stage 1, it's going to move a little bit in stage 1. If they're in stage 3, it might go down. But the foundation, when you have a strong foundation, that's where you can know, okay, we can repair this, or we can make sure that we help them build back up. I'd like to show you a clip of Mr. Rogers singing a very famous song about what do you do when you're mad. And as you listen to it, listen to the specific words. I wish that as a young mother I would have taken some of his advice and listened more to that children are not adults yet. So listen to this song and think about your own children.
It's a toy, isn't it? A toy truck. Yep. And this toy truck belongs to a neighbor of mine, and when I asked if I could borrow it, he said sure. Now, if I didn't have a toy truck, I could use a block of wood like this as a truck. You know, toys don't have feelings. Blocks of wood don't either. But people do. And sometimes people use toys in their play about their feelings. For instance, do you ever use your toy to help you with your angry feelings? What do you do with the mad that you feel when you feel so mad you could fight? When the whole wide world seems oh so wrong and nothing you do seems very right. What do you do? Do you punch a bag? Do you pound some clay or some dough? Do you round up friends for a game of tag or see how fast you go? It's great to be able to stop when you've planned a thing that's wrong and be able to do something else instead and think. This song, I can stop when I want to, can stop when I wish, can stop anytime. And what a good feeling to feel like this and know that the feeling is really mine. Know that there's something deep inside that helps us become what we can. For a girl can be someday a woman, and a boy can be someday a man. That's right. Doesn't it feel good when you're just about to do something that you know is wrong and you decide to do something else, something that won't hurt you or anybody else? Doesn't that feel great? You know you're really growing then.
I love that message, is that where children are learning to be responsible for their own feelings, where we're not always micromanaging them or telling them how to act or to react, that they can learn how. And I'm going to discuss some ideas that this, what to do with the mad you feel, some stages and some activities that you can do with each stage to help your children learn to control their own emotions and be responsible for themselves. The one message that as a parent that I really like, and I think that as adults we need to sometimes need to step back and be reminded of, is as a girl can someday be a woman and a boy someday a man. They're not adults yet, and they're still learning and growing. And as we're working with children, remember that, and remember that it does take some work, it takes some practice, and there are some stages that they're going to go through to be always in control. Are all of us always in control? No, we're not. So to help them learn to control their own emotions so they don't always have to have someone right next door or right next to the side of them telling them how to feel or how to react to those feelings. The one thing that we do know, and in this graphic, once again, I just want to show it to you so you can sort of visualize it in your own minds and think about your own children and how you deal with things, is it's hard for most children, and I would put adults also there, to learn new ways to control their anger. If children are getting appropriate or they're getting a reaction to hitting or biting, if they get what they want, why would they stop that? And some of us as adults, if we get what we want by yelling and screaming, why would we stop that? And so we need to realize that for children to change their behavior takes practice. In this workshop today, we're going to talk about some things that you can do to help your children, some activities. Don't expect overnight results or change of behavior. It takes over and over and over. Once again, I was raised in a wonderful family, had wonderful parents, and was very well loved, and I knew that I was loved. There were some things I said, you know what, I'm not going to do that when I'm a parent, and guess what? I've done those. And you know, I've learned that my parents knew a lot more than I thought they did. But there are some things that we just come by because that's our past experiences. Instead of making and thinking about those changes, it's easy to fall back into old habits. Now, to demonstrate that, we're going to do head, shoulders, knees, and toes, and you're probably going to do it a little different than you're comfortable doing. And I want you to see how you feel as you're doing head, shoulders, knees, and toes. Now, I know that you can't watch Mr. Rogers because you're trying to focus on this, but in this clip, Mr. Rogers doesn't do everything perfect because he's learning and growing too. Okay, so everyone stand up, and we're going to do head, shoulders, knees, and toes.
5 years old, we used to have recess, and in our schoolyard, some of the 6th and 7th, 8th graders were doing some pretty fancy rhythms. I forgot sometimes where my head was or my shoulders were, but we did something like this: head and shoulders, baby, 1, 2, 3. Try it with me. Head and shoulders, baby, 1, 2, 3. Head and shoulders, baby, 1, 2, 3. Head and shoulders, head and shoulders, head and shoulders, baby, 1, 2, 3. Now let's sing it. Head and shoulders, baby, 1, 2, 3. Head and shoulders, baby, 1, 2, 3. Head and shoulders, head and shoulders, head and shoulders, baby, 1, 2. Knees and ankles, baby, 1, 2, 3. Knees and ankles, baby, 1, 2, 3. Knees and ankles, knees and ankles, knees and ankles, baby, 1. Ankles and toes, baby, 1, 2, 3. Ankles and toes, baby, 1, 2, 3. Ankles and toes, ankles and toes, ankles and toes, baby, 1, 2, 3. And the way we used to end it was like this: that's all, baby, 1, 2, 3. That's all, baby, 1, 2, 3. That's all, that's all, that's all, baby, 1, 2, 3.
And that is all. It's time for us to get to the school.
Did anyone feel a little uncomfortable doing that? I've done that over and over and still have to watch what comes next because we're used to head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes, knees and toes, head, shoulders, knees and toes, eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. And so it makes it very hard to change. I like this illustration that Mr. Rogers does here to show us that it's going to take a lot of practice to help children learn to control their feelings. It takes a lot of practice when you've done something that you've done for years and years to change your behavior. Now we're going to go into those ages and stages. What do we start with emotional development, and where do we end? Stage 1 is the foundation of emotional behavior. And I think that's really important. Like any foundation in any building and any construction, it is what we need to make sure happens, and it happens at birth. And in stage 1, as a grandmother now, I love to see those babies and realize what it takes to make a child attached to you and how you can bond to that child. In this stage, it's called establishing a sense and self of body and boundaries. That's a pretty big mouthful, as what it's saying is children need to learn that they're not the only thing on the earth. Children come into this world egocentric. That means that there's no one else that matters than them. This is normal for a child. And as they develop in this stage, they realize that there's other things out there, including that hand. Okay, how many have watched a baby take that hand and find it, and it goes right in their mouth? And then the next, couple days, then they find this hand, and then the foot. That's establishing a sense of their self and their body, and also their boundaries. My son just called us last night, and he and his wife, of course, videotaped their little boy finding that hand. And so they're finding those boundaries. We don't want children to stay in this stage. We want people to grow up thinking that there's other people that are around them. They're not the center of the universe. I know that when my husband and when I first learned and was able to go and get trained in this, we were talking about it, and he said, there's a lot of people that still are in stage 1, aren't they, that think that they're the center of the universe. It's interesting to really know, what can we do in this stage? How do we help children grow so they can go to stage 2 and stage 3 and stage 4? As we look at this next graphic, you're going to be pleasantly surprised, because most of you have probably done this to help their children in this stage. We can help children as infants by providing the warm physical body contact that helps baby feel the physical boundaries of their bodies. Warm physical body contact. What is that, Gary?
Probably just touching, holding, things like that.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Touching, holding, soothing. In this stage, we know that a child from the time they are born up until 4 to 6 months, if they cry, you need to physically soothe them. That means that your voice cannot always do it. You need to pick them up. Now, a lot of past theories would say, if you hold a baby too much, you'll spoil that child. That is not true. The more you hold an infant or a baby, we provide that warm physical body contact where they know that they are loved. When they cry, that we go towards there and we help them with their needs. Now, I had one mother say, and I remember that Liz was at this particular workshop, and as mothers, we were talking about this. She had a 15-pound baby. I mean, she had this child that was huge, and here was this petite little mom, and she said, for always holding him, it was hurting me. She goes, but I could rub his hand. I could soothe his back. I could do that. And that's where we talk about that warm physical body contact. Isn't that amazing? That's the foundation of healthy emotional development. Touching, responding to a child's needs, being there for them. I think that is just wonderful that that's what we need for emotional development. Now, Nancy, I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to take your hand. With a baby, what we can do with a child is see for them to feel the difference of you rubbing them and then pulling away. They feel the boundaries of that. In this stage, once again, what are some things you can do as they get a little bit older? Because we don't want them to stay 6 months. Sometimes we do, but they grow on their own. And that is in front of you. You have some activities that are helpful in this stage. Once again, you're going to look at these and say, hey, I do these. I thought we just did this for entertainment or to pass some time, where actually these help children not only in their reasoning skills and in their physical skills, but also in their emotional skills. I Spy is where a child, maybe even you can say, where's baby's nose? And they can point to it. Most children can't talk, but they can show you where your eyes are, and they seem to point right at them, where their ears are. Where's mommy's nose? Where's doggy's? You can find a doll and have them find those different things. Also, you can say, look at mommy, tap her knee. Can you tap your knee? They're starting to see there's a difference between you and themselves. Now, as you do these very simple activities, always remind the child, that's yours, or this is mommy's. Now, I want to sort of back up maybe a little bit, but a child that is 6 months old, if they saw mine or Barbara's necklace or Liz's necklace, they're going to pull on it, okay? And they're not trying to break something of ours. What they're trying to do is find those boundaries. What happens when I do this? Or maybe you have an earring, or even your long, pretty hair. Nancy was pointing to her glasses. Lots of kids are going to do that. They're not trying to hurt you, but they're trying to test those boundaries. What happens when? And so in this stage, you might not want to wear those huge hoop earrings that you love with your favorite outfit, because a child isn't trying to do something wrong. They're just trying to test those boundaries. Again, when a child is nursing and he bites, once again, they're not trying to hurt you. They're going, oh, what are these things in my mouth that hurt? And so they're trying to figure out how to soothe them. In this stage, remember, a lot of boundaries. What happens now? What's going to happen next? A lot of touching and feeling, a lot of holding and soothing. And as a child grows, they're going to grow into stage 2, which I happen to say is one of my favorite because I don't have any children in it and I can watch other people's children in it. Stage 2. Some people refer this as the terrible 2s or the terrible 3s. Think of it as the terrific 2s and the terrific 3s. But in this stage, it's managing impulses and being able to stop. Now, a child that is in the very beginning stages, once they start an activity, whether it's crying or laughing or giggling or running or coloring on your wall, they do not have the ability to stop. Think of children in this age. Have you seen children that run into a wall, perhaps, or trip over several things, or as you're playing a particularly hard game or one that has lots of pieces, will come up and go, "What you doing?" and everything flies. That is stage 2, where children are trying or learning how to manage their impulses. Now, an impulse is something that you just automatically do. It's usually a reaction to something else that's going on, and being able to stop. As we read what you can do to help in this stage, I want you to think about children, and have any of you ever said to them as they're maybe having a little disagreement with someone on the top of the playground, "Johnny, don't hit Sally, hitting hurts." And that continues to not stop. They continue to do that. So in this stage, it describes parents, teachers, and caregivers have to be physically present to stop out of control behavior. It's important to note, do any of you have more than one child? That makes it a little difficult to always be physically present for every disagreement and every outburst. But a child in this stage, once they start an activity, do not have the ability to stop. Most of you are looking at me going, "So now what do? I don't want to always have to be everywhere, every minute, every time." And when a child is in control, not when they're throwing the temper tantrum in the grocery store and they're on the floor and you're trying to reason with them, but when they're in control, there are some things that you can do. One of the best things that you can do is play stop and go games. So I want you to just stop and think of some stop and go games that you can play with your child. Now, I just want to give you a hint. The quiet game is not a stop and go game. It's a stop. Okay, so it's not really effective because children do not have that ability. In front of you, you have one very easy stop and go game, and that's red light, green light. Now, I want you to think of a group of children. We have some 10-year-olds, some 5-year-olds, and maybe a 3-year-old. And we're all playing red light, green light. And the adult is in the front, and the adult has the green light, and we say, "Go!" And everyone runs, and then the adult turns around, and it's red light, and what happens? Oh, the 10-year-old, 8-year-old will probably stop. The 6-year-old stops for a minute, sees the 3-year-old running, and then he starts running because the 3-year-old's just having fun and they're just running. Okay, a better way to play that game is to be with that 3-year-old, to help them be physically present when they stop. Run, stop, okay? And so they'll feel what it's like to stop. Now you're going, "So how does this help my child not throw a temper tantrum?" First, let's just take a couple ideas if you've thought of any. Mary, can you think of a stop and go game that you've played with your children?
Yes, I have a son who has delayed speech, and one thing that a speech therapist recommended I do was, would narrate things that we were doing. So we'd be walking, and I would say walk, and then I would say run, and pull him, and we'd start running, and then I would say stop, and we'd stop very abruptly. And he loved that game, and those actually became some of his first words. And along with that is when I'm doing an activity and can't watch him and he's starting to do something he ought not to, I can say, Adam, stop. And he knows that word, he can stop.
And he's in control, not you,
And
right?
he's in control of himself.
Isn't
yes.
that interesting? Is that in this stage is what we want them to do is start to feel what it's like to be in control. Now, at one particular workshop that I taught several years ago, a lady that I knew from my neighborhood actually came and participated. And she was one of those people that, you know, to me, everything looked perfect from the outside. I mean, her kids always looked wonderful. She was always in control. You know, just in my perspective, everything was wonderful in her life. She had 3 beautiful little children and everything seemed great. And she came to this particular workshop, and when we were done, she left. And she didn't stay and chat with me or anything. And I thought, oh, she probably thought, oh, I know all of this. Why did I come? And anyway, probably 3 or 4 weeks later, I just ran into her in my neighborhood, and she said, you know what, that helped me so much with one of our children. He was very aggressive, he was very active, and he hit his sister, his oldest sister, to the point that we could never really leave him alone in the room. And she said he was beginning to bite, and we did not know how to handle him, nor could we have a babysitter come over because it was almost out of control. And she said, so I went home and I thought, is this really going to work? And she said, we started doing a lot of stop and go games, a lot of just turning on the music and dancing and dancing and dancing and then freezing. Anything that we could do, whether it was singing and I would have him sing quieter or sing loud, where he was controlling his body. And she said, after a while, we were able to realize that there was making a difference. And for him, it was when he would go to hit his sister, Barbara, would you pretend like you're going to go and hit me? She would actually have to say, Johnny, can you stop hitting your sister? And Johnny would usually say, no, I don't want to. And she would say, do you remember when we played stop and go? Could you stop? And Johnny would say, yeah, I remember that. Well, can you stop hitting your sister, or do I need to help you? And she said after several weeks, they got to a point where she would say, Johnny, do you remember when? And you could stop. Can you stop now? Now, in our household, we didn't have a child that hit. We have a child that, like I've said before, cries on demand. She can cry and cry and cry. And, you know, it gets very frustrating is a correct word, I think, to hear someone cry. And so as she was younger, we would do this a lot. Now, she's not a real physical active girl, but when I was doing her hair or she was taking a bath, we would play some stop and go games, or either she'd clap and clap and clap, or we would do patterns. And so as she would start to cry, I would say, I won't say her name, Sally, can you stop crying? No, hurry, hurt my feelings. And so I'd say, well, would you like me to help you? And, you know, sometimes I didn't maybe say it quite that nice. Remember when? And it really made a difference. We could see a difference when we would remind her of times when she could stop herself, and then it would make a big difference. In stage 2, let's just back up a little bit. Remember, you usually have to participate to help them control their emotions. It does not happen automatically. Maybe it will give you each a sense of relief to know, oh, my children are normal when I need to help them. But in this stage 2, they're learning to manage their impulses and learning how to be able to stop. Stage 3, finding alternative physical outlets. I think this is one that parents miss a lot. In fact, as I recall my parenting days, I probably didn't do this as much as I should have. Had I had this training, I probably would have. This is a stage where children, when they're angry, when they're upset, when they're frustrated, when they're jealous, most of the times to work out their angry feelings, they need a physical outlet. Now, I'm not going to try to change anybody's behavior. If this works for you, go ahead and do it. But let's think of a very common practice that parents use, myself included, as time out. Is that a physical outlet? No, it's not. Barbara, why is that probably not an effective way for children to work out their emotions?
Because they have to be still rather than being able to have a physical outlet.
Okay, a lot of times it might be effective for parents, but it really does not lead for children to change their behavior. In fact, and I want you to think of a time when somebody may have gotten a little upset with you, is if they said to you, you sit down and think about what you did wrong, you usually think about everything that person did wrong that causes you to be in that particular situation. And so time out might not be the best way when you have children in stage 3. What's better is to, like Mr. Rogers said in his song, punch some clay, pound some clay, punch a ball. Do something that's alternative, but it needs to be a physical outlet. In the graphic that we're going to show right now, it gives a better definition of what we should do with children in this stage to help them work out their emotions. In stage 3, if children are expressing anger by pounding, by running in a controlled way that's not hurting themselves or anyone else, it's okay for children to continue that. And I think that it's really important to remember that alternative outlet. What is something that we can do? I remember one class that I was talking, and there was a group discussion, and one of the ladies said, my child, when he gets angry, pounds his head on the floor or the wall. And that's not really healthy for several reasons. And so we as a group said, well, maybe what you could do is get a ball that he could bounce, or maybe a punching bag, or maybe a shovel to dig some dirt. And she said, I'm rewarding his bad behavior. No, you're finding an alternative physical outlet for him when he's angry that he can do instead of pounding his head on the wall. And so remember, it's an alternative. As a child works through the stages, we might not have to always say, why don't you go play basketball for 15 minutes and then we can talk? Or a lot of the times in my house it was, why don't you go swing and cry as hard as you want, and then when you want to talk, then we can talk about it. So finding a physical outlet. A book that I want to share with you that really describes this well is When Sophie Gets Angry, Really Angry by Molly Bang. And there's several books that I'll mention afterwards that have the same kind of thing. When Sophie was busy playing, when, my turn, her sister grabbed the gorilla. No, said Sophie. Yes, said her mother, it is her turn now, Sophie. And as sister snatched the gorilla away, Sophie fell over the truck. Oh, is Sophie ever angry now? She kicks, she screams, she wants to smash the word to smithereens. She roars a red roar. Sophie is a volcano ready to explode. And when Sophie gets angry, really angry, she runs. She runs and runs and runs until she can't run anymore. Then for a little while, she cries. Now she sees the rocks, the trees, the ferns. She hears the birds. She comes to an old beech tree. She climbs. She feels the breeze blow her hair. She watches the water and the waves. The wide world comforts her. Sophie feels better now. She climbs back down and heads for home. The house is warm and smells good, and everyone is glad she's home. Everything's back together again. That Sophie isn't angry anymore. That is a perfect example of children finding a physical alternative outlet. Running. It's too bad we don't live in a safe world that we can just let our kids go run and play all the time. But we have trampolines, we have basketballs, we have other things that they can do to do that physical release. And a lot of times we're the parent, as the parent, we need to encourage, why don't you go do this? Why don't you go bounce the ball? Or why don't we pound some clay or make some cookies and roll it out so that they can find that physical outlet? I know that when I watched my children grow up, that making them sit down and be quiet and think about what they did wrong was not usually the best way to help them in the future control their anger. It is a physical alternative outlet. As we come to stage 4, this is where we all want to be eventually. And some of us are here and some of us regress back to stage 3 and have to find that physical alternative outlet. But stage 4 is channeling angry feelings in a symbolic, constructive, organized way. And when you think about that, let's think of some things that would be symbolic and organized and constructive. Any of you play a musical instrument? Okay, and as you play a musical instrument, Pam, what do you play? What musical instrument do you play?
My voice.
Your voice, so you sing. Whenever you're upset, do you ever, maybe use your voice to help you express your angry feelings?
I yell a lot. No, I actually fiddle around on the piano, and when I'm upset, I do sit down and play.
Okay, and are you playing those soft songs at first?
No.
Okay, it's usually the loud, I'm mad, okay? I know I don't do as much as I would like to, but I do like to garden. I like that. And I have to say, there are times when I go out in the yard and I might be mad at two particular people in my homes, and I am pulling up the weeds and I am, and I'm doing something that's symbolic, but I do it where there is something that's constructive at the end. And so when we think of that, now, do any of you, by a show of hands, when you're angry, maybe clean? Okay, could you come to my house? As you're mad, that you take something that you symbol, maybe washing away, but it's constructive, it's organized, you get something done. Now, I want to give you a poor example and it's one that I can share about myself. Eating is not, it's symbolic, and it's probably organized because I'm scrounging for certain chocolate items in my cupboard, but it's not very constructive, okay? And so maybe going for a run, those kind of things will symbolize, I need to get rid of this, but it's organized and it ends with a constructive kind of activity. As we look for children in this stage, remember it probably won't be like at 7 or 8 years old. This is where we're getting into more preteen and as an adult. So there's going to be a lot of different stage 3 as children go on. Adults can be most helpful to children at this stage by accepting the content of the play, artwork, or stories. And in this, what we're trying to say is if they write something that's not really nice, or maybe a little, if it's not something that's going to be hurtful to others, you can accept it. The one thing that we want to do is say to our children, maybe you should go play a piano piece. Maybe you should go play around, a basketball. Go out and do something and give them hobbies. And remember when we talked about play, give them activities that will help them symbolize their feelings. I don't know if any of you draw to help you do that. I know that I have a son, and really when you think of that, you're thinking, well, how is that constructive? But it really is when he's upset, he'll go read. He'll remove himself from the situation. He takes himself away. And those are kind of things where we can actually calm down. We don't always need that physical outlet anymore, but for a lot of us, cleaning, weeding, it still takes that physical outlet. As you think about the each stages, where a child needs to learn about the warmth of the body and understand their own body and the boundaries of their bodies. Then once they learn to try to manage that That's a hard stage, isn't it? Trying to manage their impulses. The third stage, whereas they need a physical outlet for their anger. And sometimes for their happiness and for their giggling and all those kind of things too. And then the last stage is where we can actually symbolize that. As you think about each stage, the one thing that I want to maybe remind us about, and other people have suggested it to me, is when we're really upset, when you've really had a bad day, a lot of times it's that physical contact that helps us. When I think of my worst days or when I've had a hard day at work and what a hug or a squeeze or someone holding my hand can do for me, it makes us realize that we need all of those things in our life. This last clip that I'm going to show you is from a daycare, and it's a little hard to hear, so I might have to recap it for you a little bit. But watch as this little boy who's really upset and how he's calmed down, what helps him at the very end, and what he wants to continue to happen.
Yeah, Jamie, I need you to come help Audrey. If you don't want help, tell him no. I don't want help. What do you want him to do? I don't want to do anything. Do you want my help? Kenny's worried about you. He came to sit by you. Do you need a hug from somebody? No. Do you want to just feel sad for a few minutes? No. If you need something, you can tell me with your words what you need. He scratched me. Yeah? Jamie, scratching hurts. Look at my friend Acho. Look at his face. That hurts him. I don't want you to hurt my friends. Ask him, can I help you? Use your words to ask him. Ask him with your words. Can I help you? Talk to him. Can I help you? No, he said no. Thank you for trying to help him. Please don't hurt my friends. This is Kenny's. This is Kenny's. I'm going to put it away. Kenny, can you put it away? It's going to stay in Kenny's cubby. Would you like a hug now? Oh, they're giving hugs too. Kenny and Becca were giving hugs to each other. That's what nice friends do. You okay? You're not okay? What do you need? You just want some snuggling? That's okay.
Wow. I think that, to me, whenever I watch that, that really hits home, that a lot of times we just need that warm physical body contact, that we all go down through that. We need love. We need acceptance. Another book that I want to mention, and this is a series of books, this one's called What Grandmas and Grandpas Do Best. And when it says What Grandpas Do Best, and then you flip it over, oh, that's Grandmas, sorry. What Grandmas Do Best, then you flip it over, and it's What Grandpas Do Best. And it talks about different activities that Grandma and Grandpas do, but they can give you a bath or sing you a lullaby. But best of all, grandpas can give you lots and lots of love. When you flip it over, it's the same thing, maybe done a little bit different. They can give you a bath and sing you a lullaby. But best of all, grandmas can give you lots and lots of love. I think that that's the most important for any stage of emotional development, is to make sure that you give lots and lots of love. Remember that anger and the stages of emotional development is sequential. Step 1, then step 2, step 3, step 4. We can't end up at step 4 if we haven't been able to manage our impulses and be able to stop. Do a lot of the things that we've talked about. I think you'll see some positive results if you have a child that sometimes doesn't always able to control his feelings. But always remember that being mad is not bad. Being angry is not wrong. It's a normal and natural feeling, but it's usually that something else that's caused that. And sometimes when we can figure out what's caused it, we can solve the problem itself.